Those
This
that can't make
conference
it,
will
they'll
now
be
be
able to go
recorded.
back and look and take part in this. All right, so welcome everyone. Happy Wednesday. I hope you're all doing well. Some of you may be on break. Hopefully that feels good. If not, you're still working really hard. We are excited to have you. This is another one of our Spark sessions. This is probably number 17 or 18 for us over the past couple weeks. So welcome. Before we get started, Elaine, if you could move forward to the next slide.
Sure.
So if you're not familiar, which I think all of you are, we are from Knowing Technologies, Elaine and myself. I'm the Director of Teacher Development and Instructional Design at Knowing Technologies. So I run our instructional innovation program with these awesome faces, including Elaine. So Elaine, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm the Director of Educational Leadership and Strategy in Southern California at Knowing Technologies. And as part of my role, I'm a part of this fabulous instructional innovation team of educator coaches.
Yeah, and in addition to the work that we do with educators and school leaders on the integration of technology, we do also have a pretty robust section of the company where we focus on strategy with schools, technology strategy, managed IT services, a lot of strategy-led services, more on the IT side of things. So these are the sessions for this week. So earlier this morning, we had a session on digital whiteboards. So that's a recorded session now. So if you'd like access to that, we'll be able to provide that to you. It was a session, an hour session. We were talking about a bunch of different whiteboarding tools. And in our session today, we're digging into collaboration, what collaboration is, and show you a bunch of different ways that you can encourage and promote collaboration in your classrooms. And then tomorrow, we're going to have another 1 hour session on assessment. So talking a lot about what does assessment look like, what strategies and tools can be used to support remote learning. So assessment definitely takes a different turn when you think about doing that in a more of a remote setting. So if you would like to join tomorrow, please do. And yeah, that's the schedule for this week. We did have a few sessions last week as well, all of which again are recorded. So if you're interested in checking any of these topics out, whether you're new to Zoom or want some more advanced help with Zoom, if you're wanting to get through some of the basics of Drive and Docs, video assessments, using clips to create a little bit more kind of exciting videos, that's a great tool for that. And then if you're looking for some brain break resources, students are in front of screens a lot, so how do we give them some time away or some downtime so their brain can rest and kind of maybe processing in different ways. So again, those are all recorded sessions from last week. And then the week before that, we went all out and we had, what is that, 9, 10, 11? We had 11 different sessions, lots of different topics. So again, these are all recorded. You guys can all gain access to this. In the chat right now, I'm going to put the link to this slide deck. And so you have access to all of the resources for all of our sessions in this deck, but this link specifically will bring you right to our session for today. All the resources.
So just to give you a sense of what these all of these Spark sessions are, the idea is that they're really focused on one topic to focus and giving you some small bites of information, not necessarily step-by-step tutorials. Well, in some cases they are, but just to get you started and give you some resources and ideas about how you can apply these both in an in-person environment or more relevantly right now in a remote environment. So we encourage you to use the chat window to add questions or comments or suggestions as we go through the session. Again, as Jim mentioned, all of our sessions are recorded and linked to the slide deck. We also have a YouTube channel on our website that you'll be able to go through and just watch all the sessions in addition to the resources in the slide deck. And then just remember that we are all, this is a new experience for us all over the world. People are going through this and everybody has really been stepping up wherever you are. If you're an expert technology user or a novice or somewhere in between, just know that you got this, and we hope that these resources are a support to you and that you continue to reach out to other educators around the world to get their perspective. If you're looking for a more customized coaching solution, please feel free to reach out to info@knowingtechnologies.com. So for today's session, again, as Jim mentioned, the topic is collaboration. And just to give you an overview, we'll be talking a little bit about what is collaboration, why it's important, how technology can come in to provide opportunities for collaboration and facilitate that process. We'll share some examples that'll hopefully get you thinking about different ways that you might build collaborative opportunities for your students in this remote environment. And then we'll end with a group activity where we'll actually collaborate on something together so that you can get a sense of the feel for that experience. Again, the link that Jim gave you in the chat will take you directly to this slide. And then when you get to this slide, you'll be able to click on this link, which will take you to the slide deck that we're going to continue our presentation from. So I'm going to jump over to that slide deck right now.
All right, so the idea of collaboration, I know many of us are in this session because we're trying to find ways to get our students working together, but in this completely digital space. A lot of us may be used to getting students together in small groups in the classroom and having them work on different things, maybe without technology. So we first, are excited to talk about how we can make this a reality, how you guys can design lessons that provide these collaborative opportunities. So just the formal definition, we wanted to start with that. So the process of two or more people or organizations working together to complete a task or achieve a goal, right? That's the formal definition. Let's put that in the education space. So here are a few different examples of students, educators, and administrators. So I'll let you guys kind of digest that. And then in the chat, why don't you throw in a couple different ideas of either collaborative efforts that you've seen that have yielded some great results. What other types of collaboration have you seen? And I'll give you a second to digest, to think, and feel free in the chat window to put in some examples, maybe that you've done, or maybe something that you've seen a colleague do.
Because we were chatting before the session began, somebody shared an example of something that they had done and were planning to develop in the coming weeks. T. Diggs, I love the idea of collaborating on videos. It's a great way to bring vocabulary to life.
Yep, so a lot of research on group presentations, definitely, using probably a variety of tools. Kids do too, yep.
They do, they definitely do. No, that's great. And collaborating on the topic of vaping and sharing with the group. Really getting them to buy in.
Yeah, breakout rooms in Zoom, yep.
Getting together and having a chance to have small group discussions, definitely. Really good point, Anne. And better for them to hear it from their peers.
Right, and when we get multiple perspectives, we all know that we do lead to better results in general. So, whether it's students working together or all of us educators working together, maybe designing a lesson together, or, our administrative teams coming together to figure out what does the next month look like. All of that requires collaboration. And without that, all of us are going to feel siloed and in many cases not really get to the results that we're hoping for. Sometimes the beauty of collaboration is that you get to this endpoint that you never imagined, and you never thought was possible. So that's kind of the exciting part about it. See some couple more examples coming in.
Yeah, somebody using Jamboard, and if that's something you're more interested in, it's a collaborative whiteboard app that is wonderful for working together and brainstorming and sketching ideas. If you want to learn more about that, we're going to share a little about it today, and then our session this morning, the whiteboard session, also expanded on that, and I believe we even had one last week that was specifically on Jamboard. Let's see. Oh, great. A way to bring adult volunteers into the conversation for brainstorming and planning. So definitely something that was probably typically done in an in-person meeting. And now we need to look at opportunities for doing that in a remote environment.
All right, these are great. I think it's getting us thinking about collaboration and what it is. So now we want to move forward and talk a little bit about why this is so important for students.
Great. So in addition to the obvious content area knowledge that you might be wanting to make sure that your students are gaining an understanding of, there's so many more skills to be developed in a collaborative environment. As Jim was talking about, the benefit to developing communication, students being able to speak up and share their ideas and perspectives, and then the result of that being the combination of each of those individual ideas being so much greater than when you put them all together, the ability to come up with something new by combining those ideas. It also gives a chance for students to practice their listening skills, and that might be actual listening with their ears, or it might be listening through feedback that they receive in collaborative documents and asynchronous commenting. And then also the ability to provide constructive feedback and support to their peers. These are all skills that are very important, and we've referenced a couple links at the bottom of the slide that you might want to explore later, but the Partnership for 21st Century Skills framework speaks to the importance of developing all of these skills beyond the content that we're obviously also sharing with students through the process. It also helps students develop planning skills. So the whole process of going through brainstorming, writing, editing, revising, having to work with the team to negotiate task coordination, who is going to do what, when, and how. It also helps with developing executive functioning skills, time management, and efficiency in dividing up tasks, but also figuring out how to work together, how to come together when they need to come together, and then go apart and do their tasks and come back together. Also very important are the development of social emotional skills. And again, right now especially, we are always looking for ways to build connection as we are all isolated in our own spaces. Technology definitely is a tool that we can use to keep ourselves connected and working together. Oops, hold on.
All right, so now we'll get into the fun part. So how can technology provide opportunities for collaboration? So we're going to show you a bunch of examples right now, so hold on tight. We're not going to be able to go into all of the different examples in detail, but hopefully you can take some notes down, take this slide deck, and start to process. And maybe if you leave today with just like, oh, I'm definitely going to try this, that's a good place to be. So why don't we start with the first one? So some of you in the chat were talking about using G Suite. So we wanted to take one step back and talk about, a lot of document, spreadsheets, and presentation tools, whether it's Google, whether it's Apple, or whether it's Microsoft. They all have very similar features when it comes to collaboration. So we tend to lean more towards the Google suite when it comes to working collaboratively because they have a great collaborative set of tools and features. So you see here on this graphic on the left-hand side, that was actually Elaine and I working on this presentation. We were collaborating, and you can see there she was typing it in. I could kind of keep an eye on it and help her if I needed to. In the middle, there's a way to add comments. So if either you are adding comments for your students or your students are commenting, just know that they have that feature in all the G Suite products, whether it's docs, slides, or sheets. And you can also use the @ function where you @ and then you type in their email. And what happens is then going to send them a personal email that says, hey, there's a comment that someone left for you here. So they get notified. And so that's another way, like in the digital space, to kind of nudge someone and say, hey, I really want you to look at this slide or this part of the doc. I want you to provide me some feedback, or can you keep working on this part? And then on the right-hand side, there's a graphic there just talking about the very kind of easy sharing settings. That's a very quick way. You create a doc, you put in someone's email, and you have the ability to let them know if they can view, comment, or edit any of the above. And so getting familiar with the sharing settings helps you be successful in actually getting that communication, those files, to the other person. Okay.
So here's just to start off a basic example of that. This was a 5th grade social studies class at Berkeley Hall School in Southern California. And the teacher, Madeline Hardy, had her students working on doing research and learning about different Native American groups, and then creating a collaborative presentation from that research that they could present to their class using Google Slides.
I know there's a math teacher in this group, so I want to make sure we can touch and share some kind of applicable examples. So in a slide presentation like this, you can put anything on there and they can all be working on it. So it could be pictures of math problems that they're maybe working on, whether they're doing it on an iPad or on paper. They could put their work in here. They could take video and embed it in here as well. So there's a lot of different ways, kind of looking across the disciplines. This happens to be a social studies example, but always trying to find ways to apply this in other disciplines too. Here's an example of a Google Slide template that one of the teachers that we work with, we worked together and we created this. This is a Google Slide template. So we created boxes, and we wanted this to be the sort of the jumping off point for students. And so this could be a group research experience where you set the template, you kind of guide them, provide the structure and the framework, then they come in there and then they start to fill it out. And you can make as many frames as you want. And the teacher in this case was able to jump in and out, provide feedback, and really make sure that their research was actually sound and they were developing that skill of actually collecting research and finding really reputable sources.
So this is an example of a collaborative spreadsheet, and you can use spreadsheets to do data analysis. And so students could be working on a science or a math project, collecting data and creating charts. But this is a unique use of a spreadsheet, I think, and it was a way a teacher created this as a digital task tracker to help to communicate with her students about where they were on a number of different tasks. And if you go into this slide, it's actually linked to the template. So if you want to actually make a copy of the template and then adapt it to your needs, you're welcome to do that. In this case, the students are able to go in and put their name in, and then as they move through tasks, they can indicate where they are in the process, as well as whether they need feedback, if they're in good shape, or if they really need some intervention. So there's
and
some
Elaine, if you refresh it, I gave you editing access on there.
Thank you. I was like, conditional formatting wasn't working, but so now you see the conditional formatting is set up so that all they have to do is click on the little triangle and they can grab whatever the appropriate response is. And then it also color codes. So it's very simple for the teacher to look really quickly and see who needs help, who's already in good shape, and as well as where they have turned in their assignments. There's also an area here where they can input some notes and expand on their needs. So this is a great example of a way to collaborate using a spreadsheet, whether it's Google Sheets, Numbers in Apple, or Excel in Microsoft.
Yeah, there was a question in there about, can you individualize this for students? You definitely can. You just would create one sheet for one student and then share it with that one student, and then use the conditional formatting and the data validation. So I would definitely write that down in your notes, is to do some research on conditional formatting and data validation, because if you can get more comfortable with that or sign up for a coaching session, someone can help you with that. You can do that all at the beginning, and then all of the magic sort of comes in after that, where the colors are there, the drop downs are there. You don't really have to do much after that. And if you have the template, you can just copy and make a copy of it yourself and use that any way you want.
All right.
Okay, so collaborative docs. So here are two examples. The one on the left was a template that I had created with a language teacher a while back. And what this does is you take a Google Doc and you made a couple columns. On the left-hand side and the right-hand side, these were supports for students. Again, we can apply this to any subject matter really, because then where it's that green bar, they can either type in their response. This is an essay writing, so they'd be typing it in, but if there was some other subject matter, you might be able to type something in or even insert pictures to show something. And so this is another way that a teacher and a student were working together on this. And so they were able to look at what the teacher was saying on the side, and then of course use the commenting. On the right-hand side, this is actually an example of an edu protocol. It's a great book if you may not have read it or seen it, but it's a great book that gives a lot of great teacher strategies. It's called Edu Protocol Field Guide. And so there's one in there that it's actually a protocol that we adapted. It was called the Great American Race, but we adapted it to be the Great Latin American Race, because this was a language teacher that wanted to do this type of experience with their students. So what she did is, on the right-hand side, the students worked on or collaborated on a Google slide presentation, and they set up slides for each of the countries. They didn't say the name of the country, but they put, ¿Qué es el país? So what is the name of the country? And they put pictures and they put some facts. And so they were designing a slide, but they didn't put the name of the country. So they designed probably, I think it was close to 20 slides. And then, so no one knew what slide was what, except for the one that created their own. And then the students had to break up in groups, and completely silent on that Google Doc on the left, they actually had to go through the slides, use the commenting, use the chat feature in Docs to actually figure out what is the country. So they did that all silently, and the kids really had to focus on, how do I communicate online? And they loved it. It was a really fun experience for them, because they would go through the list and there was completely silent. And so this is a great example of how you can use both docs and slides, and use a lot of the collaboration features.
This is an example of using a collaborative drawing experience, and they were using Google Draw. And this was an English teacher, and they were exploring use of figurative language and vocabulary in poetry. So what she did is she added the poem to a drawing, and then created a legend for the students to then go in and annotate the poem. So the students went in and they highlighted examples of metaphor, simile, and interesting vocabulary that they felt lent to the meaning of the poem, and added some notes. So this was, an interesting way for, again, a group to come in and explore a poem, as opposed to maybe reading the poem aloud in class and then having students volunteer their ideas. They were all able to share their ideas in one document.
All right, so here's another Google tool that we wanted to share with you. So some of you may be familiar and heard of Jamboard. It's one of the Google core apps. So when you're in Drive and you go to New, you can hit, Doc, Slide, Sheets. And now if you go to More, that's where you get to Jamboard. So Jamboard is a collaborative whiteboard tool. I know Randy and I have spent some time talking about that one. And what you see here is on the upper right-hand side, it's a math example. And so what you can do with Jamboard is it's just it's like a blank white page, and you can add directions at the top, and then you can use the built-in and then share it with the students. It works just like Doc Slides. You can just share it with them just like you would any other Google file. They get it, and then they have the ability to write on it, add sticky notes to it, insert pictures to it. There's a whole bunch of things they can do, and then it's in a sort of a slide format where you can have multiple pages. So if you want to work on it with a student, or you want two students to work on it, they could have multiple whiteboard frames, they call it, and they could have more of a whiteboarding kind of open space to work, or you can be a little bit more structured and provide a template and share it with them, and then they work on that template. The one at the bottom also shows you another example of, this was a kind of a listening activity where they had to listen and they had to draw what they were hearing. So it has a lot of drawing, has text options, and you can insert photos. Some other classroom ideas are down there. Here's an example of like a timeline. So Elaine will click on that one so you can see it kind of a little bit more in action. So what you see here was a timeline where they were writing down kind of major events and kind of iconic moments relating to the Berlin Wall. So you see the variety of different types of items on here. So on the left-hand side, you'll see the pens. So you see the pens, you see the eraser, you see the pointer, and then you see the sticky note. So you see that yellow sticky note there, and then and then you can add another sticky note, you can drop it in, there's the pen options, and then there's that picture option on the left-hand side. Yep, and then they also have a laser pointer option. So the laser pointer option is really great. Say you created a Jamboard and you wanted to model this to your students and kind of walk through it. You could use the laser pointer, and then the laser pointer eventually fades away. And so a lot of teachers are trying to figure out what is that alternative for like an in-class whiteboard. And this is a great example because not only is this a whiteboard kind of setting, but it also is collaborative. So students can get in there. I think there's a question, could a small group of students use this for a research project? Undoubtedly, yeah. So if it was, any sort of research. So this one, it happened to be about the Berlin Wall, and there could be maybe different moments in that history and that timeline. I think for math, it's ideal because you're actually able to draw out math problems and solve things. Maybe it's a problem per page, something like that. Or maybe they do that, and then one of their peers actually jumps onto another slide and actually kind of maybe makes some notes or comments or helps them if they're stuck. So there's a lot of possibilities across the board with Jamboard. And it's great it's very cross-functional. So works on the laptop, works on a tablet. It's great.
Works on a Chromebook. So.
Yep.
Great cross-platform option.
Yep, and you can add templates. So there's a question about setting up templates. Yes, you can set up a template, put some questions on there, and then they go in and then they fill it out, definitely. Yeah, and they can either draw the answer or they can type the answer using the sticky notes. So it's somewhat limited. You can't do anything and everything that you want. So you'd have to use the functionality on what's built into it.
What's great about most of these tools is they start as a blank slate, and the students can use them as that, but you as a teacher can also design supports and structure to help them to get a sense of what the task is and to help them move through a process. Somebody was asking.
So there was one more question, yeah, about the laser pointer. So on that toolbar, it was at the very, very bottom.
This little guy right here.
Right there, yeah.
So there we go. All right, let me jump back into. All right, so Another thing that you can do is to have the students working in the area of design and the presentation of ideas visually. There are a lot of different tools that you could use for this. This particular example was using Adobe Spark Page, I believe, but you can also use Canva, and really you could use any of the slide presentation software as well. And in this example, the students were doing biography research, and the task was to design a graphic that represented the person they were studying without using an image of that person. So they had to use text and images and shapes that represented that person, and explore the use of color to relay their ideas. What you'll also see down here in the lower right corner is a link to a QR code. So in this case, I think somebody earlier was talking about having students use video to present their ideas. And this was a link actually to a video that the students then created to share more about the person they were studying.
Yeah, Adobe Spark is a great suite of tools. That one was Adobe Spark Post, which allows you to create great graphics, but they used Adobe Spark Video to make the video that you scanned, and it was a really great, simple video creation tool. So it's a great set of free tools as well, Adobe Spark. So back to a Google tool. So if you haven't heard of Google Keep, so Google Keep is a digital note-taking, almost looks like little sticky notes that we all have access to in our Google Drive as well. It actually, if you guys have noticed in your email, or when you have a doc open, you have a little column on the right-hand side, as you see in the picture in the lower right. There's always like calendar, keep, and then task. Keep is the one in the middle that has the picture of the sticky note. And so as you see here on the upper left-hand side, so that the keep options, it allows you to collaborate. So you can take a note, you can collaborate, you can add people, you can change the color, you can add pictures, you can add drawings. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do with it. If you start to look in the upper right, teacher view collaborative student list, what that is it's like a to-do list or a task tracker. And so what students did with one of our teachers at one of our schools is that the teacher said, okay, I really want to help you guys with time management. So I want you to create a keep note, and I want you to share it with me. And then in her note section, she had one from every single student, and then she could see how they're progressing and how they're doing. So they would do the check boxes and they would check through them, and she could add to it too if she wanted to, but it really helped her manage students and help them with the time management part. And also it's just great for maybe collecting photos, collecting things. On the lower right-hand side, we've seen teachers actually create keep notes with just pictures. And so on the lower right-hand side, there was a feedback picture, a good job picture, and they just dragged them into a Google Doc, which actually helps with providing feedback. So if you use Google Docs or Google Slides a lot, you can drag those in, and that image down there shows you how to do that, just in a sort of a quick sort of way. So Google Keep is great and pretty versatile. It's a tool that we really like using.
Okay. The other thing that you can think about is having students collaborate to create websites. And this is a really great way for them to synthesize their research and their understanding and to share it with a wider audience. So Google Sites is an excellent tool for this. And this example on the left was a school, Vistamar School in Southern California, and they were studying Confederate monuments. And so part of the assignment was the students were studying different Confederate monuments, the issues around them, the origins of them, and current day issues. And they had to write a research paper, but then they had to develop a website that was going to help them to present their ideas to in a live presentation, not just read off the website, but really use it as a complement to their presentation. So this was a collaborative website that had each student created their own page for a different monument, And then the teacher's plan was to connect with schools in the areas where these monuments had actually been erected and get feedback from students who live in that area. To be able to create a dialogue between students in Los Angeles who may have a very different perspective on the monuments and the impact on the people in society and the people in the South, and give them an opportunity to have a dialogue and a collaboration and understanding on a current issue. I'm going to actually, I just realized, so this is actually, if you want to go back to look at this slide deck, you'll be able to actually hear the teacher talking about the project and sharing the work of the students. Another great tool for creating collaborative websites is called Sutori. And there is both a free and a paid version of this product. This project was done by students at Mayfield Senior School in Southern California. And they were studying Athens, Sparta, and Rome. And so what's nice about Sutori, let me actually just pause that one, is it allows you to integrate audio files, so the students can record themselves right into the app. You can import graphics, so the students had to create infographics to represent their learning and provide explanations of what was in the site, as well as obviously text and video. So the students also embedded videos that they created to share their understanding.
We've also seen math and science teachers use it to walk through problems and like show different steps along that continuum. So it doesn't have to be used in a sort of a traditional timeline fashion. It's just showing kind of the progress of the pathway.
Right, we've seen English teachers use it as a way to create resources to give background for a novel and then have the students contribute to that. So again, all of these tools are blank slates that just require some of your inspiration and creativity to bring a collaborative experience to life.
Mm-hmm. So this tool is known as Padlet. And so Padlet is it's a collaborative board. Some describe it as like a bulletin board in some ways. In the upper right-hand corner, those show you the 8 different types or formats that you can set up with Padlet. You can do a wall, a canvas, a stream where it's going all down, but every single one of those boxes is a post that someone adds to it. A grid, a shelf. A shelf allows you to put column headings, which you see on the lower right. That's the shelf option. You can do a back channel chat, so you can have a discussion. It has a kind of a chat sort of functionality format. It has a nice map feature, which you see in the lower left. And then it also very recently introduced a timeline feature where you can, every post is on a line. So it's a part of that continuum, similar to Sutori in a way. So on the left-hand side there, for a couple of examples, one of those was a master research Padlet. So all the students had to add all of their research. They were kind of collecting research and articles and links, and they were all posting those on there. The one on the bottom there is using the map feature. And so the students had to do a global project. And so they would type in a location, it would put a pin in there, and then their post would be there. And they actually put in a video that they created to talk about that area. And then in the far right-hand corner, that is the column format. It has teacher names, or they could be student names. And as they were presenting the work that they've been doing actually in our program, we were all commenting kind of behind the scenes, talking to them about and giving them feedback on what they were presenting. And so that's a really great way, very simple way for people to provide feedback during like a presentation, for example. So again, Padlet is definitely one of our top tools when it comes to collaborating. This is one that we use regularly.
Another great collaboration platform is having students work together to create interactive digital books. There are a couple different ways that you can do this. The one that we find to be one of the easiest for kindergarten to adult is Book Creator. But you could also do this in Apple's Pages or in Google Slides. There are different ways to go about doing it. This first example on the left-hand side is from Mission Dolores Academy in Northern California. And these were first graders. And what the teacher did when we talk about setting up a template is that the students were studying position words. And so she created a book where she made a page for each position word. So she has under, in front of, then she had on top of, next to, and the students had to go into the book. And the first pass was for them to go around their home and take pictures of themselves or things in their home that represented that term. Then the next pass was for them to go back through and look at the pictures that their peers had posted and do audio recordings to describe what was in the picture. And then finally, the next pass was to go back through and actually type out a sentence that represented what was happening in the picture. So I'll just show you a little piece of that. But what's great about the interactive digital books, especially in Book Creator, is you can publish them online. People can click a button to have it read to them, but they also can click on the audio hotspots to hear different aspects of the book. You can also hide the audio hotspots so that it makes it like an interactive book where they can click on different things, click on different animals to hear animal noises, or different vocabulary words to hear, in a world language class, click on pictures to hear that word being spoken in the language. So here's just a little example. Oh, hold on, let me turn the sound on and start back up. Okay, so these are first graders, and I've seen pre-K students do just as well with this app. Over here on the right is an example of a high school English class at Mayfield Senior School in Pasadena, California. These students they created a collaborative book to help them get a sense of the historical allusions that were happening in the novel that they were reading, so that they could get a better context for what was happening in the story. And so in this example, the teacher again created a collaborative book that had reference to some of the different allusions and events that happened during the time that the book was set. And then students worked collaboratively, 2 students to a page, to create a page that represented, that shared some of their research about that topic, and incorporated images, web links, and audio to help bring that idea to life. This then became basically a reference for the whole class to be able to go back to get a better understanding of what was happening in the novel.
In the 1910s and 20s, a large number of African Americans moved from the South to other parts of the country. Why did they move? What kind of impact did this have on the nation?
So again, a lot of potential for just to integrate a number of different types of information in different modalities for students to share their ideas.
Yep. Okay, Elaine, so we have about 15 more minutes. So we thought we could just start a group activity together. Not sure how far we'll get, but we'll give you a little bit of experience and exposure with one of our tools that we just talked about. Elaine was just sharing on Book Creator. So Elaine will guide us through this part, but you're going to have to now open up a new tab in your browser and kind of follow along these steps. Okay.
Okay. So what we're gonna do now is start you'll want to go in Chrome, preferably, to app.bookcreator.com. And actually, I will put that in the chat. And when you get there, you'll have a chance to sign it. By default, it has student sign in. So you want to click over on teacher sign in. And if you have a Google account, sign in with Google. If you have an Office 365, you can sign in with that. And we'll give everybody a little bit of time to get signed in.
Yeah, so the link to get to this is in the chat window. It says app.bookcreator.com. Try to go to that, because if you just type in bookcreator.com, it sometimes brings you to a different spot.
Mm-hmm. If you did do that, you can just click on sign in and it should take you to that page. We want to maybe have you just put a little note in the chat to let us know you've arrived. All right, Angela and Anne, great.
We've arrived, good.
Cool. All right. Okay, Randy, great. I think I'm in. Okay. So we'll just give it another second here for T Diggs. So if you need any help, please feel free to jump into the chat with a question. Once you're in, you're going to be looking probably over in the upper left-hand corner for these 3 bars to get yourself to the teacher dashboard. And when you're in the teacher dashboard, you want to be on libraries, and you're going to click on join a library. And the code that you want to join the library is right here. We'll type it in the chat. Awesome. And T Diggs, if you see the teacher, if you see that you can get to the teacher dashboard, then I think you're in.
Mm-hmm. So just make sure that if you felt like you did it wrong, kind of take a few steps back and just go back to app.bookcreator.com and just make sure you've logged in as a teacher, and make sure you sign in with that Google account or that Office 365 account, whatever you may use. Just maybe start fresh again. And then once you're logged in, you can then go to the library and put in that code. This is what you'd have to do with your students. You'd have to set up the library first, and then you would invite them, but they would be logging in as a student.
Mm-hmm. And what you could do is create a little screen recording walking them through this process so that they wouldn't even necessarily have to do this with you during a synchronous class. So once you're into the library, into the 669 VLTH library, you're going to click on the pencil to edit the Spark Session Collaboration book. And when you get into the book, if you go to the upper left-hand corner and click on Pages, you'll see little thumbnail views of some pages that are already in the book. So this is a template that we've already set up. You can see we put a few directions on the second page, and then there's already some entries in the book. So you're going to click on the last page in the book, and then click on the plus sign to add a new page. And once you're on a blank page, I'm going to tell you just enough so that you know enough to be dangerous, which is if you click on the plus sign up here, it's going to give you the opportunity to add media shapes and comic panels and speech bubbles. So if you click on those different tabs, you'll see different things you can add. And then if you decide you want to make any changes to them, like you want to change the color or the font, once you've added the item, if you click on it, you then will be able to go to the eye to make a change to that item. So I'm going to jump here. So the assignment is to go in and just create your own page. Add your name, what school you're from or organization, your title or what you teach, some kind of way to contact, either email or Twitter address. Try adding an image or drawing an image, and then adding something, an idea that you're going to take away from today's session, maybe something you want to try or share with your colleagues back at school.
It looks like everyone's in, which is good. Sorry, go ahead, Lane.
Great. Another way when we talk about collaborating and giving feedback, Jim was talking about how in Google Docs you can add comments to give people feedback or check in about things. One thing that you can do in Book Creator is you can add audio recordings or text comments to give feedback. So once you've added a few things to your own page, look at some of other people's pages and maybe add something like, oh, I teach the same subject that you do, or I'm interested in that too, and look for a way to make a connection with somebody else who's with us today.
Definitely. So there may need to be some clarity on the pages. So if you made your way to the end, looks like Anne's on slide 10. It looks like we would need someone on slide 11, and then we just can create another slide 12. So everyone grab a page. I think what we could probably do too is we could unmute ourselves, because we have a small intimate group here. So if you guys want to unmute yourselves, you could start talking and see how we're doing, and we could help guide you, that kind of stuff. So feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like.
You can even see I'm on the page that Anne's working on right now, so you can see that I'm on the page and Anne is on the page. You do need to be careful. Oh, looks like Randy's there too now. You do need to be careful, whereas Google Docs has a revision history that you can go back to a previous version. With Book Creator, if you make a change, there's, other than doing the undo button, you can't go back several versions. So you do want to be respectful. Oh, and Tom, you got in, awesome. So yeah, please feel free to speak up if you have any questions as you're working.
So use those arrows on the right-hand side, you guys, to kind of keep going through the book so you can get to a free page. And if it looks like it ends, just press the plus and it'll make a new page for you.
Looks like Angela's got a page now.
Yep.
And Randy just made a page. Awesome. On. Angela. Oh, it looks like Angela and Tom are now collaborating on the same page.
Which is totally fine.
I like the way you use the speech bubble there, Angela, to check in.
When you go back up to that plus button, make sure you notice where it says media, comics, and shapes. So you have quite a few different things that you can do. You can actually use the pen. The text is pretty kind of simple in nature, so it shouldn't be too hard to use. And of course, you can use the recording features. The comics are just kind of nice add-ons, without a doubt, and then shapes as well. So feel free to try those out. And once you've added your pieces to your page, click on it and then press the I. That gives you more editing power. You can then do more with it.
So I can go in and change the border of Angela's text here. I can actually add a shadow. I can add a background color to it.
Oh, nice. Randy got a graphic in there. It looks like the coordinate plane.
Actually turn the music off here for a second so I can record some audio. Gonna go in here and hit record and say, this makes me laugh.
In standard position, positive angles are counterclockwise rotations.
Awesome. The other thing that I love about Book Creator is that it has a lot of accessibility features built in. So if I went over here to the audio recording that I just recorded, and if I click on it and I go back to the I can click on Add Transcript and choose the language that I was speaking in, and you can choose multiple languages and then have it generate a transcript. And it takes a little while to go back through and analyze the speech, but when we come back to it, somebody who has a hearing loss would be able to click on that and read what was being said in the audio clip. You also can create alternative text for people who have visual impairments. So I could click on the image, go to the I, alternative text, and say, woman making funny face. So now when we're in the read to me mode, somebody who would mouse over that image would be able to hear a description of what was in the image. You also can create captions for any videos that you record or upload into the book. So these are really important things to teach our students about is to build accessibility into whatever they are sharing and communicating.
So when you guys, for the record, there's a couple questions, Elaine, about where to find the recording option. So you click on the plus in the upper right-hand corner. If you click on the plus, Elaine, do you mind showing him that?
Sure. Say that to add things, you mean? Right
yeah,
here?
To add the recording. Yeah, so you have to go over to media, slide over to media, and you go down to where it says record. And same, there was a question about using the iPad. So when you're in the iPad, you have to use the browser, not the iPad app. In this case, because there's the iPad app and the Chrome version, they don't actually communicate with each other, which is unfortunate. So use the browser, and then when you click on the I, you should also have the ability to do so. I'm not 100% sure if you're using the Chrome browser and you're actually trying to get to the annotation of the actual pen on the Chrome on the iPad, it may not be available. It may not.
On the iPad, if you want, so thanks for bringing that up, Jim. There is an iPad app that is just independent. You can make a book on your iPad, but you can't collaborate with people. But what you can do is you can go into Safari or Chrome on your iPad, just like we did right now if you logged in with your computer, and then you would have access to all of the same tools as we're seeing here. Another fun tool is you have the ability to add drawings. So as we can see, Randy has done here. And in fact, I can also, if one of the fun tools in the drawing tool is auto draw. So if I wanted to, maybe I'm not the most talented artist, but I want to draw a bicycle, I can start to draw what I'm trying to communicate, and then I can actually find that and click on it, and it will insert that graphic onto the page for me.
Awesome.
A lot of fun.
Okay, Elaine, I think we've done some really great work in a very short amount of time. Hopefully that gave you some exposure to a lot of tools and ideas. You got a hands-on experience with Book Creator. Look at all these great pages that we designed together. So thanks everyone for joining us. And Elaine, do you mind going back to the slide deck just so we can remind them about the session for tomorrow?
Right. Let me go back to.
Yep, you're on the right one. You're good. Just press present. Okay, great. So that was collaboration in an hour. So we hope you got a lot of good ideas, get your brain going. Feel free to reach out to us if you want some one-on-one time. I think that would be great. I think most of us are KT partner schools, so I think we'll be good there. Tomorrow we'll have a session on assessment. Okay?
Great.
So have a good rest of the day, you guys.
All right. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.